Greetings and welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm Kojo Bafu, and this podcast is an extension of my book by the same name. In the book Listen to Your Footsteps, I shared in a collection of essays, anecdotes, and poems some of the lessons life has taught me on loss, identity, fatherhood, work, and everything in between. Having worked in various parts of the media, one of the things I've always appreciated about the work has been the opportunity to get a peek into the past that other people have taken. This podcast is an opportunity for me to continue to learn from others and hopefully to let you, the listener, also gain from their wisdom. Thank you for opening yourself and listening. This week's guest is Thula Sindi, who has found a way to navigate the space between the creativity of fashion design and the processes of running a fashion business. From his work with Vlisco, establishing his own brand, to the launch of the Africa Rise business, Thula has always approached work and life from a place of integrity and honesty. So first of all, thank you for joining my podcast. I think as you might have realized, it's literally just a conversation, and it's an opportunity for me to kind of get insight into thinking, journey, that sort of stuff. Um, so so the place I want to start. I mean, I usually have a very cheesy place I want to start, but which is my usual line is, "What did you want to be when you grow up?"
Hmm. Well, geez, that's so hard to tell. Well, I always wanted to be in the arts, something artistic, because I'm from a very creative family. Um, so I knew I wanted to be a fine artist, maybe like a sculptor or a painter. But at the same time, I like making clothes. I used to like play with dolls and stuff. So it was always something on the creative side. It was always decided, So I haven't really moved away from that. I studied fashion. Well, I studied fine art at the art school for high school. And then I just decided to go into fashion because I really, really like it. I honestly do. It's so much fun. But yeah, I've lived a very linear life, not very exciting.
Is it? But how do you get to fine arts? I mean, considering you were growing up in a time when, or you were growing up in a time when those kinds of careers or those kinds of opportunities were not, they were not well known. I mean, a lot of us, it was particular environments. You saw the doctor, you saw the teacher, you saw the police person. Um, how do you then go? Okay, fine arts is actually a thing.
Well, I'm from a very kind of different place. I'm from Clarksdorp in the Northwest, and my family are Seventh day Adventists. So it's a very different type of upbringing, very different.
Yeah.
In a good way, actually. It's like very open minded. And like I said, most of my family, I had an uncle who was a very well known musician. Um, my grandparents were artists. Yes, they had their day jobs, but they were also artists in terms of like painting and crafts. And also on my dad's side, my dad's mom was a businesswoman. She sold vegetables and whatnot.
Mm.
And so it was a very, very, very different environment. So even when people talk about this whole teacher, doctor, lawyer thing, it didn't really relate to my context. And that's why I always talk a lot about how a family is its own universe.
Yeah.
You can create your own universe no matter what society is doing outside. What you guys decide to do in your home, that is the world for your children. And for me, it wasn't even, it was really, really easy, honestly speaking. You just have to be good at it. That's all my parents were saying, that if you're going to do this, you just honestly have to focus on it and be the best you can be at it. But even all of my cousins now, they all do different stuff. Filmmakers, musicians, photographers, electricians. We all just did what we liked to do, but you have to be good at it. That's the only thing.
Mm. I mean, I like that idea of a family being its own universe, because I think also what happens a lot of the time is we look at the external, and we use the external measures and the labels and what is how you live your life and how you don't live your life, and we bring that and apply that into our own spaces, and that has the potential to totally stifle the real potential that each individual has within that universe that you're talking about.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it's influenced a lot of even just my personality. Some people find me quite bizarre because I really I like fashion. I like working in fashion, but I don't like things like I don't like fancy cars or big houses or glamorous things. I find it quite silly. But I love beautiful clothes and I love expensive clothes. But I like what I like, and it doesn't have to fit into what you think a fashion
Mm.
person is or what a fashion person should like or appreciate. But if you're from like a very bizarre family to start off with, it's just it makes everything else a whole lot easier. And yeah, I'm from a family of individuals, and uh, I don't even think there's a black sheep in our family. I think maybe that one cousin who went off to be like a lawyer was the black sheep. I think.
Well,
So yeah,
I always joke and say I'm the white sheep of my family, and that's just because I'm the only one who had a European mother. Uh, You know,
yeah.
so yeah, even those, I think even those labels like the black sheep, the white sheep. A friend of mine recently put out he posted a quote around being weird, and saying that if you're labeled weird, you should actually take you should be glad for being labeled weird, because it means that the way you live your life and how you approach things and how you view things is in a way original. But for a long time, I mean, I know that growing up, people would say, okay, because you listen to this kind of music or you're interested in that kind of thing, that makes you weird. So that makes you other to a certain extent. But we're getting to I really believe we're getting to the point where, there's so many of us who supposedly sit outside the mainstream, that in our differences, because there's still a lot of similarity, but in our differences,
Yeah.
we actually form, we form a community through the differences, or through being other. And was, at least it's nice to see for younger kids growing up today that they don't feel so bottled in.
Yes, and it's very liberating, because as much as we all individuals, we do have common traits, but it's nice for especially growing up to see there's different ways to live life, because
Mm,
I think a lot of pressure comes from thinking there's only one way to be or one way to appreciate stuff or one way to experience things, and it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all, and you just want to, especially for like young teens, like you're raising young kids, and you just want to l- liberate them as soon as possible that you are you. Nobody will ever be you at this moment doing this, coming from this family. So you can't even possibly compare yourself to anybody else. The factors don't line up. So it doesn't matter what Bobby or Kathy are doing next door. They're not you in the best
mm,
possible way. So you just have to do the best with what you've got. And that for me has been my life. I've just done the best with what I've got, all the natural gifts, the unnatural gifts, all the opportunities, everything that's possible to do. I do my absolute best at. And also small things. I remember even my grandfather would always say to me, you don't need to be the most talented person, you just need to be reliable. That's all you need to be, because everyone else just falls
mm,
away by being dishonest, unreliable, not being able to be counted on. So that was always his always thing, because I was always, actually when I was first starting off, I always wanted to be the best, the best, the best, the most talented. And he was like, you're wasting your time. There's always people who are more
yeah.
talented than you, but nobody can have more integrity than you. You have to keep your word. You have to do what you mean,
Mm,
and you have to follow through. So few people can actually do that. You'd be surprised. And I always thought this old man is just being really like really trite, but it served me so well, honestly speaking, because especially in an industry that's about production, about delivery, about satisfying customers, you just have to keep your word, and you just keep on coming out on top, and you to build relationships, and it builds on and on and on and on and on. And that's actually what's kind of brought me to creating Africa Rise, is having that type of reputation, especially with other designers and other creatives as well, where
mm.
they're like, okay, we can count on this guy. He won't run away with our money. He keeps his word. And you don't realize it when it's happening, but yeah, it is what it is.
I mean, that's the thing that's always fascinated me about you. And I mean, when I used to have a radio show, I remember having you on the show, and I was telling people that I'm going to talk to Thula about entrepreneurship. And and the misconceptions around particularly small business and entrepreneurship, like in this country. This kind of when I had you on my show, I was telling people that, look, I'm going to talk to Thula about entrepreneurship and the narrative that's sold around entrepreneurship in this, particularly in this country. Like, to be an entrepreneur, then you're going to become a millionaire. And because of that, I've been fascinated by that aspect of your journey. And I think you've just explained it, where what you're saying about your grandfather, because so many people can be, we have the geniuses, right? But a lot of times, what seems to be the common factor with the geniuses is that, okay, they can create something that's amazing, but you can't count on them, and
Yeah.
there's no deliberateness to it. So when did you start to? So the question I have is, when did you start to kind of, let's call it, manifest that side of you? Because I mean, you started out and you started designing, and I'd like to think you. I mean, not. I'd like to think you were extremely successful, and there's always been a resonance and a connection, particularly with women, with your, not just your design, but the spirit and soul of what you're creating. Um, so, what was that journey like? Like starting out, coming out of school, and then that evolution.
Well, like I said, it was pretty linear. After I matriculated from the National School of the Arts, I went to Lyshoff, which is a fashion school. And the experience was pretty terrible, in a word, um, because fashion school is really kind of where you start to encounter people that really aren't as passionate about what you do as you are. And you get there and you're excited and you want to do this thing, and it's not the same. And all of a sudden, school is such an equalizer. You don't realize that there's rich kids and poor kids, and you don't really realize it until you get to like college and you have to laminate stuff and have all these Copic markers that like are like 10 grand for a full set. And you're like, shit, I'm poor. I didn't realize it because I was like at a art school where we all still live in hostel and wash our shirts in the base, and you don't quite realize it. No, because I lived in this small cocoon and I got to college, and it was pretty difficult because if you're in a trade like fashion, there's inputs. You have to buy fabrication, you have to create all of these projects, and it does take money, no matter how talented you are. It's like even fine art. If you've got the best canvas, it helps. If you've got the best brushes, if you've got the best paints, it helps. No matter who says what, you can be as talented as you like, but you can't like paint on a piece of
Yeah.
newspaper. So it was a bit disheartening at first, and for me, the lecturers weren't as excited as I was about this. I guess educators also kind of get exhausted. And the worst part is that private colleges also attract a lot of people who'd rather be doing gap years or going to Greece, but they'll do fashion,
Mm,
and it's not such a do or die thing for them. And you are there, you're like, this has got to work or else I'm going to stop. So the dynamic was just, it was really horrible in every aspect, and I wasn't ready for that. But I focused on trying to be able to afford my college fees because my parents were trying as hard as they could, but of course, one needs assistance. That's why I
mm,
actually started making clothes. One of my first customers was actually Bonim Bully, strangely enough. I was in second year and she was shooting a TV show upstairs, some music show. And her stylist had wanted something to do with the skirt, must be more puffy. And the fashion college was downstairs. So the
mm,
stylist's name was TD, I remember. She walked downstairs and she was just asking, like, is there like a fashion student here who can quickly just sew up like a tutu for me? And I was like, I'll do it. And yeah, then I made the tutu in like 3 hours. I went upstairs, I dressed her, and I was a second year dressing Body Bully. I took the stylist number, and things just started to roll from there. Then I met Penny and I met all of these other people. And I was just making clothes while I was in school, paying for my fees. And then I also used to go out a lot at night, a lot. Then I met people like Babalwa and all the girls who used to like to party, and I used to make them dresses for going out. And that's where my business started from, and just really
mm,
understanding women's needs from that perspective of literally just being a helper, saying, what do you need? How do you want to look like? So then I could suddenly afford my fees and I had a little bit extra left over. I was like, wow, I'm in business, you know? And so by the time I was in third year, I graduated and I went to a job interview with Vlisco, which is a Dutch company. They create
Yeah.
all of these African
Yeah.
textiles. So it's a long story. Dutch East Indian company,
Yeah, I
long
know. I know
story.
the story.
And they needed like a creative director. It was just something small they wanted to do, really, just to show people what they could do with the fabric. Um, they didn't really want to pay much, and I was like, well, I can take a percentage of sales, and this ridiculously low base salary. And think they thought they were being very smart, and they're like, yeah, let's do that.
Mm,
Then we signed the contract. Then the first thing I did was I asked Alisa Mukubung and Malcolm Cook, who I used to do patterns for my gap time when I was in Cape Town. For holidays, I'd go down to Cape Town and work for other designers. By the way,
mm,
this is what I would do. So I knew all of these people, and I was just 1 year out of college. I said to them, guys, let's all create a collection for Vlisco. We sell it in the store, you make a percentage, blah, blah, blah. We did that, and it was a financial success of epic proportions. And a quarter of that came to yours
yes, so
truly,
yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, really good. But of course, it created tension with the company because it was like, yeah, it was just they weren't prepared for that. Then of course things work well, and a 21-year-old is in charge. They brought in consultants, of course,
Yeah.
to monetize it and professionalize it, and all of these words that you're like, but I did all of that, and I'm still here. So of course, being 21 and you put ultimatums, it's like the consultants go or I go. I didn't realize it was possible that they would fire me. I honestly didn't think it was possible because I'd created a garments department that was very, very profitable, literally in a matter of 6 months.
Mm.
So yeah, they paid me off and they told me to go. That's how I started my business with the payoff for yeah,
That's
KZN.
what I mean, but that's one of those. That's one of those stories, and that's one of those situations. I mean, I suspect being older, um, it's less surprising that an organization like that will go. Actually, well, we're gonna call your bluff, and we're gonna let you go. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, interesting enough, like if you look at where are they now versus the journey that you've gone through,
Yeah.
Um,
And it, but it was just one of those moments where um I want to say I was deeply disappointed. I was
mm,
deeply. It was a. I grew up immediately after that because I'd just been hopping and skipping along, and yes, fashion college was a bit of a hump, but at the same time, it was like a year of being down, and then the moment I got to really start creating clothes and selling clothes, college was just I didn't care about it. It was a way for me to get the paper and to
mm,
leave.
yeah.
So I'd just been hopping and skipping along, and then that was my first real kind of face against the Brits moment where it's like, damn it, so this is real life. So I thought, like, if you do really well and you make people money and they'll like you and they want to keep you around and, it doesn't work that way. And yeah, so it was really hard. I mean, like about 6 months after that, I couldn't find a job. I honestly couldn't find a job because I was grossly overpaid in my previous job,
Mm,
obviously.
yeah.
And I couldn't adjust to what was on offer for somebody my age with my limited experience at that point. So I really didn't start my business from a point of wanting to because I thought, no, let me just get a few more years. I tried to apply to the Foschini Group, all of these other places. But I do also think I kept on failing that. What's that test that they make you do?
I,
Where
I've
they
I've
see if you're a
never
team player. What
I've
is that?
never
What is
worked
it?
in corporate, so like,
Yeah. But it's like this test that they make you do. And I'm like, geez, every time after I take that test, it's like we regret to inform you. Um, because I don't think I'm a traditional team player, honestly speaking. Um, I like being the lead, but I don't like to micromanage. So I had to start my business just from the fact that I couldn't find another job. I didn't feel ready. Honestly, I didn't feel ready at all. But we have economic realities in this country that don't allow us, especially as Black people, to kind of like get ready and
Yeah.
take 2 years off to find yourself. And sorry, I had bills piling up, and I'd spent the money quite recklessly before. Yes, at least I had the payoff, but mm, I needed a job, so I created my own job.
What was, because it feels like there's various, let's call it various chapters to your business, right? So there's Thula Sindi, your business, when you created your own business, you were providing, you were designing, running fashion shows, doing collections, etc., and you had clients. Um, and then you started opening up stores, standalone stores. So you made that transition, and then all of a sudden it's Africa Rise. So what was that? What was that journey? Um, and I asked this kind of having some knowledge and some insight of that journey, but it's important to also kind of reflect now that we're where you are now, right? Because the last time you and I had a conversation, it was you were busy shutting down shops and trying to navigate a very difficult partnership in a very difficult situation. So what was that journey from, okay, I'm starting my business and I'm building my collections, to I'm opening stores?
Thanks for that, because most times people actually gloss over those steps, and it's like, oh, and one day I woke up and I had shop stuff. But when I started my business, my first decision was that yes, I had private clients, very well-known private clients, and others who weren't well-known. But I realized early on that creating stuff individually for people had a very low ceiling. You're not only selling a product, but you're selling your time. So you have to consult with them. You have to, make them stuff and run and do all of these things just for one person. And there's only so much time in the day. So I would never be able to scale the business up if I continued to interact with people at that level, being a client-based business. I want it to be a product-based business where I can create the item in my own space, my own time, and create productions of that and then put that in a store. But of course, I didn't have money to have a store or anything like that, but I had enough capital to start a ready-to-wear business, which is
Yeah.
what my dream was. And I was doing ready-to-wear at Flisco already, so I knew that I've got a capacity for it.
Mm.
So what I decided, and at that time, strangely enough, Atipatra Ruga, who is a very well-known famous artist now, was a fashion designer as well. We were like contemporaries. Me and him were designing together. He had his own line, I had my own line. And there's a store in Rosebank at the News. It was called Labelle.
Yes.
That lady had really interesting clothes from like across the world, and she said she would stock our garments because we'd gone into the store and said we've got really beautiful things. We showed her and said, "Can you put them in your store?" And she said, I don't stock South African brands, but your stuff is so well made, so I'll put it in the store. By the way, I can sew like crazy, like I can sew. So that's how we started. And the moment you disassociate your garment from yourself,
Mm.
you can literally price it at any price, because the issue with client business is that somebody walks into your space, they see you're in a little one-bedroom flat in Westdean, so they kind of like bargain you down and things like that. But the moment you're in that
Mm.
same one-bedroom flat and you create something that is gorgeous and worth 8,000 rands market, you know, and you put it in a store that has things that are double and triple that price, but
Mm.
equal to quality, and you put it in there away from you, all of a sudden somebody can walk into that same store and purchase that garment for that much, and you didn't have to interact with them or anything like that. So that's how then I had enough capital to go into the next move, which was having my own physical stores, because now I was stocked in the Edgar's stores. I did that Edgar's deal, which was really, really good at that time. And I had 36 boutiques, which I was stocking. I opened an online store. So I had all these other places now where I was selling my ready to wear. And that's how I made enough money. But when I wanted to go into a physical store, I had two choices. Do I do something small and cute, or do I get a partner and do something really big, really beautiful, and blah, blah, blah? Of course, I made the wrong choice and I went with a partner. That was a nightmare. That was a nightmare. And it's got a lot to do with the kind of capital that's available in this country,
Mm.
um, the types of people who are willing to invest in smaller businesses are either thinking really small, or it's dirty money, or it's just people who aren't honest about what they're doing. We really don't have any type of infrastructure for any kind of good type of investment.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way. And I had to detangle myself out of that legally, and it cost me a lot. I had to close stores, I had to do all of that type of stuff. But it was also another hard lesson. Those, see, the political thing and the partner thing, those are my two hard lessons in this world. But the nice thing about all of these things, if you hire the right lawyers, and eventually hundreds of thousands of rands later, it does get resolved.
But look, it feels like expensive lessons, but it also feels like you have learned particular lessons that few of, let's call it, your contemporaries within. And when I say contemporaries, it's more the fashion designers that you started out with, because when I look at you now, I don't see you just as a fashion designer, right? It's you for me, you're more than just a fashion designer, because you're creating, you're creating so much.
And that for me was really honestly, could the next step. I was like, I've had my own stores. There's no one coming up behind me. And the issue with that, South African designers are really so good at what they do. People don't realize it. I'm like, this is why South African designers win LVMH awards and all of this thing. We are actually so good at designing, and I mean
Mm.
designing products. You look on the continent, and all the rest of the designers, they do incredible stuff. And people like it on Instagram, and but it's not product. It's not ready to wear. It's stunning. It's but it's not easily wearable products. South
Mm.
Africans are so good at that, and I think it's just because of kind of like the geography of this country, and just how we are, where we are. We are isolated as a country, but also we are still connected to the world. So we create this kind of bizarre alternate world. That's why I mean, like, even our music catches on so well, our dances, all of that. It's like we're weird, in a good way, where we create stuff because it has to sell, because we're in a tough economic place.
Mm.
But at the same time, we have to be creative because we cannot compete against the bigger businesses. That's why we're always creating new music genres. We're always creating these new little dances, and we've always been good at it. I mean, like, even from Miriam Makeba, we've always been good at trends. We've always been good at that type of stuff. So certain designers are very good. We just need to monetize what we do. So being me, I thought, there's so many people with money inside this fashion industry that can, create all of these platforms very easily. They can create multi-brand stores easily. They can fund the right people. But it just never seemed to happen until I was like, you know what? I'll have to do it myself. I have to create a place where South African and African designers have got access to the market, because that's the missing element in everything.
Mm.
We're still being treated like a cottage industry, and it's so infuriating. And it happens even at the highest levels, where you can go to the arts and culture, and they'll talk about, no, why don't you put your stuff at the weekend market, like the flea market? I'm like, are you people nuts? Like, these things could sell anywhere. They could sell it at Selfridges. They could sell at Barney's. These things
Yeah.
are beautifully made. They're international quality. Why do we always have to be at some weekend market at the store? They think so small, and they think so little of creative people that they can't even help it, even when they're trying to be altruistic. It's like this thing of the Lokshin economy. It makes me so sick. Oh God, I hate it so much, because you're like, why is it still a Lokshin? That's the
Yeah.
first problem that you need
Yeah.
to go and solve. And there's no businesses in residential areas, unless it's a convenience-based business, like, like a garage, or
Yeah.
something that's residential. The Lokshin is residential,
Mm.
same as Rosebank, same as Parkhurst. It's residential. So if I want to have a Rosebank, I mean a restaurant in a residential area, that's cool. But you can't say I must go and sell clothes in a residential area. That's ridiculous.
Mm.
It doesn't even make sense when we know South Africans buy clothes in shopping centers. Why can't we even just have a small percentage of this market that's worth billions, and I had to do it myself, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, how did you decide on who's kind of part of Africa Rise? What was the thinking and the strategy behind that space and that store?
Well, for me, it was pretty easy because everyone is honestly so good, and I feel like mostly underdeveloped in terms of how much money they're making for the kind of craft that they're creating and the kind of product they're creating. I mean, from Palisa Mukubung to David to the Ditsala accessories, like all of these people have great products, and yes, they've got their own stores, they've got their own networks, but there needs to be more and more and more because the way South African shoppers are, if you go to Sandton, you will never go to Rosebank. If you're a Parkhurst person, you live in Parkhurst, your kids go to school in Parkhurst. We're also kind of like localized in where we shop,
Mm.
that South African and African design needs to be in as many places as possible because the shopper is so well developed now that if they like something, they'll buy it. They don't even care anymore if it's locally made. And I know a lot of people think that that's a bad thing, but that's a very good thing. We don't need petty purchases. We don't need solidarity purchases. We don't
Yeah.
need support. We just want we we compete and we excel at what we do, but we just need to be accessible because people are time starved. They're not gonna hop over a river in a pond to get to us. So we can't be in like secluded areas and not be accessible to people. We need to be as accessible as any other fashion brand. And it sucks that an Australian company can just come to South Africa and open 10 branches and it's normal. It's normal to everyone.
Mm.
But for us, we have to take the little steps. We have to have hands held and see how we can make it work in the market. Whereas the only thing that makes the market work is money. If we have enough money to be in 5 or 8 or 10 different locations in this country, we can actually make money from this thing. So it's easy to decide which designers to put in. They're all
Mm.
good. So I just have to take off the top, the ones that we can contain inside the store, because we have a very limited space.
Yeah.
But we do have the online store as well, which has even more designers. And we've got 3 branches now: Joburg City, Sandton City, and Menden, Pretoria. We're hoping that, well, COVID did us a number, but maybe in the next 2 years, we could have 2 more branches as well, just to service, especially like the Durban area, maybe Bloemfontein as well. Not sure about Cape Town. Yeah, but yeah, Bloemfontein, mm, Limpopo side perhaps as well. Or yeah, I'm still in the thinking process of that.
Mm.
But it's such an easy business. It's really honestly build it and they will come because people want product all the time and unique products and it's well priced, it's great quality, it's very unique, it's more unique than these thousands of Gucci bags that all exist and these thousands of belts. So the customer is there. We just need financial support, nothing else. Literally, like
Mm.
government needs to give us money to do this. But in lieu of that, we're doing it ourselves. And the designers are good, and the customer is responsive, which is the most important part. And
Absolutely.
we keep growing. Yeah,
Do you still have time to design?
I do. The thing is that the way I've created my business is that I'm not necessary in any shape, way, or form. I only work 4 days a week, you know, 3 sometimes. I have a very good team that takes care of a lot of things in terms of the retail side of the store, in terms of the production side, and the manufacturing. I design every single garment that is Thula Sindi is just designed by me, because that's the easy part, that's the dreaming up of things part. And you can design an entire collection in a single afternoon. And that's always one thing I've been good at. I'm very prolific in terms of what I can do in terms of design, but I've got a great management structure. I've got staff who've been with me since I started, since day
Mm.
one. And at least luckily, I've been able to retain them to a point where it's almost like they can read my mind. And that's what's made this fun. And that's why people always say, "Oh, but you're always so busy." No, I'm always at home or on Twitter or playing Street Fighter. Or yeah, I don't
Mm.
like being busy. I would, if I was from a wealthy family, I wouldn't work. I don't like working. It's just the fashion is the thing that enjoy the most if I have to do something. But yeah, I try to create an environment at work that's really easy. Like my staff, they work 1 week on, 1 week off, so they can also follow their own passions if there's stuff that they want to do. And my production staff works 4 days a week, so each weekend for them is a long weekend. They can do stuff at home. They can visit family. It's I don't know. It's for me. It makes me feel proud that my staff is like, oh, we earn more than all of you other garment workers, and we only work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I just want to create my own universe. I'm that type of person. I'm not happy with how things are. I've never been. And somebody says that's just the way it is. I reject that. I just want to create my own world, and so far it works. It's been a tough 2 years with COVID. Uh, Very, 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 very tough. But luckily, when you're creating a specialized product, um, and you're in charge of the production and you're in charge of how to change what you do and how to make it relevant, it makes it a little bit not easier, but at least you are in charge.
You are listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, conversations with Africans who are navigating this world on their own terms while trying to live life to the best of their ability.
Before COVID, 60% of our sales were the African traveler and uh, American and European tourists. So when the lockdown happened, it was a shock for us once we reopened and sales were really, really weak. Because we'd been operating literally not on autopilot, but when the outsiders love us, so we're cool. We hadn't really kind of catered solely to the domestic market because we're such a strong outside customer. So we had to grow up and really change immediately and really listen to our customers. I think we'd somehow neglected the domestic market because the bulk of our sales were the African traveler, the Americans, the European tourists, blah, 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 the business traveler as well, and tourism on the continent alone. I mean, the Angolans, Nigerians, that was the market. And now we're stuck with just the locals. But it took us about 3 months to really see what do people really want from us. And I think it's got us in a much better position because now our sales are back to where they used to be and only on domestic customers.
That's brilliant.
Which means once we start to open up, we'll be in a much better position. But it was a difficult lesson. We spent about 6 months way low below target. And you must understand with creative people, it hurts when people kind of reject your product. And some creatives just cannot change. They cannot change, especially when they look at how well they used to do. They feel like it's almost like a rejection. And when you tell somebody to change, like you're trying to tell them to change who they are.
It feels personal. It feels extremely personal.
Absolutely. And so it's been difficult to work for all of us, And you must understand, we have a daily sales report. We've got this WhatsApp group every single day. You see who sells.
Wow.
And every day it's not you.
That must that must be heavy too. It must be heavy. I think personally, like it must be heavy just to deal with. I say it, for example. So I just came out with a book, right? And then people go, "How's the book doing?" And the one part is I have zero context. Okay, so I've never had a book before, so even when the publisher eventually sent me sales figures, I'm like, I don't know what that means. But at the same time, deep down inside, it's like, I know how many they print on the first run. And I know how the different bookshops, like Exclusive Books, has their like top 10 that they post all the time, right? So I do have some kind of reference point. And then kind of every week you're on social media and you're in a space and like there's no conversation. You don't look anywhere near that. Or for example, this podcast where I look at the charts and I'm like, I don't feature anyway. And the logical side and the rational side understands that I'm just starting this thing out. It's good. I work in the content space. It takes time to build things, and time is not 2 weeks. Time is 6 months. Time is 10 months.
Yeah.
Where a year down the line, all of a sudden, the first episode that I did will start to gain some traction. Like I know all of these things from a rational professional perspective. But there's still those moments where it hurts a little bit.
Yeah, no, it does. But for us in fashion more especially, we need to sharpen that too. And I mean, also just transparency. These designers, most of us have been shielded away from each other in terms of our financial performance. And I mean, in this group is the most established designers you can think of.
Yeah.
And the little money key that's literally making these things from their mom's garage, and I'm not exaggerating. And sometimes the reality is flipped because the customer at the end of the day is who decides. And it's tough, but those who've taken the lesson and who've improved and who've really said, what can I do to make myself better? And there's also external factors because we've got 3 stores. We've got Joburg City, Center City, Mainland. And the shopper is different. They're looking for different things.
Absolutely.
And you just need to be plugged into what they want, preempt the need or create the need, and also promote. I always fight the designers about this. Promote. And you creatives, you don't promote enough. I think creative people find it offensive. They find it like it's whorish to, always be talking about yourself or hawking your wares and it's not. There's ways to do it that I always say, just talk about what you feel most comfortable with and segue it back to what it is that you do and you try to sell. Because most people just don't know where to get the stuff or what is it that you make. I like to actually even tell the designers that some of them are secret designers. No one knows they're designers. You look at their social media feed, you'd think they're politicians, because they don't speak about what they do. They don't put pictures up of what they do. They'll do it once in a while. And it doesn't mean direct people to the end product where they can purchase it. We're like, here's a nice dress, but not where I can buy it, or here's a link or anything like that. But I mean, like, those are all lessons that we all have to learn, and it's easier to learn together. I've learned.
Yeah.
And especially with Africa Rise, what I'm trying to do even now is that I've got an internship program with CETA, where I take yet 9 young designers and I put them into a store, and I just accelerate them through that process because we can't afford to make mistakes, especially unnecessary teething mistakes. We can't literally financially we can't afford it as young designers. So I put them through that process of saying, you don't have to go through all these small little steps. You already got a fashion education in this country. I don't know how you did it because it's so damn expensive. So it's time for you to make money from this thing. This is how you do it. This is how you monetize it, and this is how you create a business out of this. And so far, it's been 2 years of it. We're doing the 3rd year this year. I prefer to really just find the learners organically because the moment you do like a call to action, you get like 1,000 people responding, and it's heart wrenching. To be able to say no to people who hear no every single day.
Yeah.
So what we do usually, I just go to colleges and say, who's your best student, or who's the student that you thought had promise but they dropped out. I reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I've got this program. You sort it out for 6 months. You don't have to think about food, transport. We sort all of that out. You've got your little stipend. All you have to do is focus on creating products that will sell and sustain you going forward. You can make them from your mom's house. You can make them wherever. They just have to be damn good. Or you can make them in my studio with our machinery and our expertise. But you can start your business literally by just having an idea. So it's been working really, really well. And but I'm hoping for a much better year this year. The last 2 years have been grueling for us, especially in retail.
Absolutely.
But we're still breathing. That's what's important.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's a journey that we are all on in different ways, and we had the one great, not necessarily leveler, because there's still privilege and there's still prejudice and there's still those who take advantage. But one of the things that I find is, Because I was joking with a friend the other day, and I was like, I remember 2016, 2017, people going, we need a reset. We need like a control alt delete. And
Yeah.
everybody kept on going, yeah, we need a reset. Well, we got it. What are you going to do with it? That's the question. But I think one of the what as we close up, one of the things what I love that you said and that was interesting to me is, for example, that you work 4 days a week, um, and you also allow your team that room. Why do you think it's important? I mean, I do have ideas of why I think it's important, but why do you think it's important to also be able to find that balance? Because we all come from an era where it's like you work 7 days a week, and the harder you grind, the harder you hustle, the better you're perceived to be.
Yeah, well, I don't subscribe to that. I don't know if you see that I'm the gentleman of leisure. I don't like working. I don't like also seeing people slave away for me. I'm an outcomes-based person. We have targets at the store, we have goals, and I understand that the people that are there also want to reach those goals. So I want to make the environment as desirable for them as possible. And wherever I can't pay them hundreds of thousands of rand, I can pay them really well, but also their quality of life can be, so different from everyone else around them,
Mm.
and which is for me, that's where I've gotten the most positive feedback, and that's why I can retain staff because if there's a family gathering or a wedding or funeral, they can leave and do stuff. They're not trapped in this thing called work, and so they go the extra mile for me. I go the extra mile for them, and it's really it's a team effort, but without it being forced. It's really we like, guys, we want to preserve the way we work because honestly, we are all so spoiled. We've been doing this for 12 years, all of us together. We wouldn't be able to survive anywhere
Yeah.
else. you know,
Yeah.
we honestly wouldn't. So we all heavily invested in making sure it works, and it's so appreciated. The other day I was so shocked when my cutting um, technician, she brought me these like matric results. This was like last year. Her daughters. I was like, okay, very good. She's like, Tula, this is my daughter. Like, I had her when I started working with you.
Wow.
I'm like, oh damn, you did.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, yes. It didn't click. She comes, she visits, but you just you, you don't get it. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, we've been at this. Like, yeah, we've been at this. So like, she was literally the first person that worked with me. Yeah, when I left, let's go. I was 22. I'm 38 now. So it
Wow.
was,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah. It puts it, I mean, it puts it into proper perspective, right? Because like you're saying, we kind of we go through the journey, and it's putting one foot in front of the other, particularly when things are tough.
yeah,
I mean, I always say I live by that, by that philosophy. Like when things are tough, like I put my head down, you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and when you look up, you realize that you're out of the trough. Um,
yeah,
but because often we don't take that step back to look at the bigger picture, we miss out. We miss out on those very small, very important. I mean, very important and very necessary nuances.
no, I was really shocked. And but I've had a easy-ish progression, and I want life to be easy for other people too. It's
Mm.
weird, but I'm like, if I'd be like a villain, I'd be like those villain that puts everyone on holiday. You know, I just want life to be easier for everyone. There's ways to still get what you need, but it doesn't have to be so horrible and so tough and so difficult. I just have never seen why it has to be like that. And
Mm.
even the way I was brought up was very easy, and my parents were very easygoing. And you only see also these things in retrospect. Man, like my parents, they never used to pit me against them. It was me and my brother are a unit. My parents are a unit. We need to work together to make the household work out. So it's like this team effort thing. And then you
Mm.
go to other people's houses, and the dynamic was completely like the dad is the boss and everybody is his slave. And you're like, oh, it's completely different where we come from, you know? So I just feel like there's always easier ways to do really great stuff and to enjoy yourself in every small thing. So that's what I try and do. Things like money and stuff, whatever. I use money to create new opportunities and new platforms. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want a Bentley. I don't want a big house. I don't, but I want to do interesting things with my life and also to show what's possible. So that's me in a nutshell.
I think on that note, thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
it's always, I mean, the reason why I always enjoy talking to you is because when we talk about the labels and we talk about particularly the society that we're in and the country that we're in, people try to create these boxes, and for me, you've never been just in one particular box. And that's what I've always enjoyed about watching your journey, but also interacting with you in that it's about living, it's about living the best life that you can possibly live. And you have particular things that you do. And it's, well, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, people used to say to me, it's so great you do your passion for a living. And I'm like, listen, writing words is my job.
Yeah.
All right. Like, if it was about passion, then I'd write when it moved me. And if it didn't move me for years, or if it didn't move me for months, then I wouldn't write. But I have to write every day, and I have to look for more writing every day, because that's my job. That's how I feed my children. And like you're saying, like for me, money has always been a vehicle. Money's always been, okay, I want to live a particular type of lifestyle. To live that lifestyle, I need to get the money. So I was recently saying to a friend, like, if I did something today that got me all the money I needed, to be able to live, and that amount is, I've learned over the years that it doesn't even have to be huge, because we grew up with this idea that must be huge. It's like, no, actually, kids at school, they have their things. I can do the things that I want to do. Then it's about chilling and deciding, okay, I'm going to write another book, and I'm going to spend a year. It may take me actually 2 months to write the book, but you know what? I'm giving myself the next 12 months to write the book. I'll wake up and write for an hour and chill.
Yeah. And for me, that's how life should be. I'm not here to suffer, hey? I'm really not. And I think just a part of that does transfer into what I do and into the clothes. There's the ease to it, there's the sincerity to it, and I don't like screwing people around or cheating them. So that's why I love to make classic pieces, investment things that I can tell that from the way I've cut this, the way I've made this is going to last you. This is not me trying to get a quick buck from you, and then this thing's going to be out of fashion or fall apart. I want us to work together to just have an easier type of life. You open your wardrobe and it's filled with solutions, because this guy thought of like really great garments that will last you, and it, we can just make life easier for people, and that's just all I want to do. This is just how I decide to do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
you too. Bye bye.
Bye.